And
Awesome. Awesome. Let's get this started. Yes. All right, folks. Welcome to our first design workshop, which is ironically called Design Thinking. All right, then. Um, my name's oopsie. My name's Rishabh Singh. I'm community lead at FOF Mumbai. More on that in a minute. And I'm also a lead product designer at Interready, which is a Bombay-based startup. And today, I want to know how I'm feeling. Can you drop an emoji in the chat to describe how are you feeling? Okay, this is Saturday evening, so quite good times, if I say so. All right. Okay, I'm getting all kinds of mixed reaction. Why are you laughing? Why are you laughing? I'm
well,
curious.
I'm just so glad that so many people are there because, like, just like me, they don't have a Saturday evening plan. I'm not alone.
Welcome to tech. Welcome to tech. All right. Okay. So it was quite nice, knowing about how you people are feeling, but I would like to know a little bit more. Starting with, I want to know if you are a designer or a developer or something else. Okay, so just drop in the chat. You can also say A, B, C, or if you want to go extremely specific, you can just type it out. Okay, I see a lot of A's. Oh wow, a lot of designers in the house. Yay,
Yay.
designer,
I
storyteller.
love
Oh wow.
storyteller. Yeah, exactly. He's like none of the above. That's always
Yeah,
the
man. I
answer. Right.
create my own category. I create my own niche. Lovely. Okay. Now tell me, what is your favorite drink of choice? Is it coffee, tea, or something else?
Something.
Just write down ABC or just, you can be a bit more specific.
Can't ask designers this question, or you can't give them a C option.
Ah, I see
See?
beer. Oops. All right. Haldiwala dude. Okay. Okay. That is really, really, thoughtful.
Creative answers, guys.
Yeah.
Good job.
All right. The next thing I want to know, what is the first thing you do when you wake up? Do you check your phone? Do you take your coffee, tea, or haldi wala doodh? You meditate, or you go for a run? What do you do? Okay, okay. All right, all right. I see only A and B's.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
everyone's like, hell no, D.
Guys, pick up some healthy habits.
Snooze
All
my
right. Okay, okay. The next thing I want to know, how do you ideally spend your weekend? Okay. Do you like relaxing at home? Do you like to go outdoor adventures, trekking, and things like that? Do you catch up with your friends or do you attend workshop like these? All
Mm.
right, it's
Everyone's
getting hard for
Saturday
me to keep a track of the chat. Yeah, D, yes. Someone is working on a new startup. Congratulations. Watching Netflix. Yeah, I think that counts as relaxing.
yeah, that's important, D. Yeah.
They're very important. Depends on what you're watching, to be honest. All right then. Now enough about me asking you, okay, what you like, what you don't like. How about you tell us yourself? Okay, let's do something fun. Okay, let's do a speed networking session. You can use this format. Write one sentence: who you are, what you do, where do you work and study, what are you looking forward to this workshop, what are you most excited about, and how can I connect with you? Drop your LinkedIn, drop your Instagram. Okay, just drop some link. Okay, let's use this format. I'm going to keep it for a few seconds on the screen. Okay, just type it out and let it flow. All right, all right. Okay, I didn't ask you how can I contact you. You told me email. What is your email? Okay. See, this is what happens, Isha, when you tell people, write a couple of sentences. This is what we gave you. That's why we had A, B, C.
I understand. Yeah, you definitely have to give them like a multi-choice
Yeah,
option. सेंटेंस नहीं आ रहा है, वर्ड्स आ रहे हैं अभी, 3 4 वर्ड्स आर
right, right. Okay. Okay, let's move on before people, kind of get sleepy.
कमिंग.
All right, folks. So let me tell you a little bit about Friends of Figma Mumbai. So Friends of Figma is a um, community practice or a community platform created by Figma to connect designers locally in cities and in regions. Currently, there are about 200 plus regional Friends of Figma communities around the world and 14 currently in India. These are some of the events that we have done in the past. You can see June 2023 was our first event, the config watch party. October 2023, we had our second event, which was again a designer and developer mixed event. 2023 December, we did our flagship conference. Dishti was there, so yeah, as well. And next, in March 2024, we did our summer design meetup, which happened at Pineapple Studios, where Dishti works. So yeah, once again, we already had a good rapport with Dishti. So yeah,
Yeah, there was a big
amazing, amazing times. A little bit more about events we did in 2024 May. We did our first meet jam. It is a short form networking uh, format event. And then we did our second config watch party this year, June 2024. Our collaborative event, design, which was a design conferences, and people all over came in. And guess who was also there? Yeah, Dishti was there. So yeah. And most recently, just this last weekend, we had our second meet jam, which was in Andheri. So again, another successful event in my portfolio. Now, I want to tell you about our little bit story when we started. So FF Mumbai existed for quite a lot of time, but then it became quite active in June 2023 last year. And when we started, we were somewhere around at number 10 with about 210 members, okay, 210 members. But in one year, in last one year, we have been able to, rise up the ranks and be at the top. So currently we are the biggest Friends of Figma community in India. So yeah, followed by Bangalore, Pune, Hyderabad. All right.
Yay!
Uh, you can also be a part of our community. You can just scan this. It takes you to basically everything you need. Our Instagram, WhatsApp community, everything you need. Okay. So I'll keep it here for a second. Suraj will also be dropping a link to this in the chat. So you can, of course, check it out over there as well. Now, I want to talk about PIWOT, who are who we are collaborating with to bring workshops like this to you. Uh, so PIWOT is a community of all the IITians coming together, and hosting a national level conferences where they had some really amazing speakers, like Prime Minister Narendra Modi. And this year they are having Minister of Railway and Technology. So it's the amazing, national level conference that they are doing. Guess what? This year, along with that, for the first time ever, they are also doing a design and code hackathon. Okay. And you have mentors from all over the world. You have amazing speakers. One Dishti and this workshops like this are, just to get lead up to the actual hackathon. So amazing stuff. It's a free hackathon. It's happening on January 17 to 19. Registrations are open right now. So, and yes, accommodation, travel, and food are all on the organizers. So you can just apply for the hackathon, and if you get selected, we'll see you right there. All right. So again, we'll be dropping link to this in the chat, so you can just go ahead and register if you haven't already. All right, all right. Now it's time to welcome our speakers. Dishti Desai, this stage is here. Thank you so much for coming. Let's get it started.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Rishabh. I didn't realize I did so many events already with you guys. Like I was I've done a lot. So if anyone who's joined today's, workshop has been to the design Vichar workshop, that is something what I'll be similarly speaking about. Although I wanted to add some more experience into what I spoke about earlier. So yeah, I'm gonna share my screen and get started. Cool. Is my screen visible?
It is.
Okay. Right. So I wanted to actually talk about the DVF model and about how we can basically think about DVF model in different scenarios that is there. I will expand what DVF means as we move forward into the deck, in case those who don't know what the DVF model is. And also, the DVF model is taught in a lot of schools, institutes, but oftentimes when we get into jobs or we get into roles, we forget what DVF really stands for. We forget the DVF model. We actually, all of us tend to forget how to work in models, and we start just doing our jobs and finishing the research and doing the UX and the UI and everything that happens along with it. So let's talk about design thinking. Uh, One of the things, so I've been, so, just to give a short understanding to you guys, I've been designing for the past about 11, 12 years now. And I worked in a lot of different places before I dived into UX UI design. And, I've been working since about I think 18, 19 years, but I've been a designer since around like 12 years. So because I worked in different fields that were there and I got into designing, after that, um, nobody really sat down and really broke down what happens when you do design thinking. A lot of times we feel like design thinking is like brainstorming or like looking for literal answers or like looking for things on the internet, and that was the culture that got built a couple of years back because we were all new to design, and that's why we got the habit of looking at things on Dribble and Behance and Mobile and Appshots and all of these different platforms that were there, right? But that is not thinking. That's actually switching off your mind when you're looking for answers directly, when you're looking for answers on the internet, in fact even when you're looking for answers from your leaders or managers. If you look for answers from people around you in when you're thinking about design, and again this is very different from asking questions. So let's say that if you get a brief and you have to design like a particular app or a website or any particular for any particular interface, the first thing you need to obviously do is research, read up, understand. You will have questions, you might not know a lot about that industry. So at that point of time you might ask different people about different paths, but that all is very different from design thinking. Design thinking technically begins after you've done your research and asked your questions, and now you're thinking about a solution to solve the problem. That's exactly where that design thought process lies. But a lot of times I've seen a lot of people mix that up, and it's important today to talk about this, to segregate it down so that you can better your process of delivery overall. So when you're doing design thinking, it's not about getting it from everybody else, like I mentioned, nor is it about directly jumping into design either. It's like a phase which is between research and between actually designing, and that's when you're thinking using your mind. It's like, think about the time that, let's say, you have to nail a frame to the wall, right? When you are looking at the wall, what size is the wall, how much area do you need to utilize, all of that would be your research finding questions. Putting the nail on the wall and banging the hammer on it would be designing. The part between these two phases is trying to think about, let's say, how would it enhance the experience of, when I put up this painting, is this the right place to maybe put it on also? Why do I like this space that is there? That is the phase when you're actually thinking, you're utilizing your mind, you're trying to come up with solutions before you actually do the act. So it's definitely not jumping into designs. So what is actually design thinking? Design thinking, DVF, is basically desire, viability, like economic viability of a product and technical feasibility of a product. So DVF is divided between how human beings think and have how human beings have experiences, how those experiences that a designer builds is economically viable, budget friendly, and also the amount of time that you spend doing the design, and whether it is technically feasible or not. These three things are very, very important. So while it's really fun to think about design and how you're going to solve the problem, parallelly at the same moment you have to think about these different aspects that happen and take place. Diving more deeper into desire. So, Rishabh, is there a possibility that we can ask questions to the audience, or will I just have to go like through and through? I could
Yeah,
ask.
you can. Yeah.
You will have to help me because I'm going to ask some questions. Okay.
Mm,
So,
absolutely.
okay, when we talk about desire, okay, what do you guys think is required in order to understand human desire better? I'm gonna go off my screen for a second. So, what do you think human desire is, and how do you think it really works? What are your thoughts on this? Maybe some of you guys can answer some of those things, and I can understand how much you really know how human desire works. Yeah. So, Nikhil's like human desire is human behavior. Okay. We have empathy. Someone has a very serious question about the hackathon.
Yeah. These are old messages. Yeah, if you scroll.
Empathy. Oh, it's going very fast. Perception, empathy. It might not be a need but a want. Fulfillment, pleasure. Okay, interesting. So if you think that human desire is human behavior, fulfillment, pleasure, perception, empathy, you know what this is, but how would you tap into human desire through these words, right? It's very difficult to say that, hey, if I want to connect to my audience, so I want to connect to people, I'm going to connect to people by being more empathetic or being more perceptive or being understanding human desire better. Now, while some of these things are really important, the key word technically about human desire is that it's always going to be a subject that you have to constantly understand, you have to constantly study. So one of the most important things for me was when I actually tried to understand people's subconscious mindset or users subconscious mindset, specifically subconscious mindsets that are absolutely different all over India, also categorized by metro to tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 city audiences that are there. I realized that the only way to do that at an extent of being one human being is to be extremely observant. So being observant is a very important skill set that all designers must have. The whole idea of being observant comes from the idea of also being extremely curious. So in the DVF model, when we talk about human desire, we need to understand that it's not that we say that, okay, you know what, all users like to swipe, or all users like to get their orders in less than 10 minutes, right? Like your desire is to get it in 10 minutes, but why do we want to get it in 10 minutes? Do we want to get it in 10 minutes because I don't the people suddenly don't have the patience? Is it because that I want everything available in around me in that period of time? Why is 10 minutes the golden number? Why not 5 minutes or 1 minute or like 15 minutes? Like what is actually the habit that is being created in people through which they are now desiring that object? Is it business driven? Is it driven by actual human behavior? And these are the kind of things that you have to observe and learn about, like even in smaller instances, like when you go to a restaurant or when you see your friends scrolling through Instagram, or you going into your board meeting and you look at every single individual of different age groups talking, speaking, behaving, or understanding things in a very different manner. All of these things are information, all of this is data for you, and that data could be a sample data that you can use in order to understand desire better, in order to question desire better. And while this is This sounds really easy to do, it's extremely difficult to do. You have to make sure that you are noting different human experiences as you go about your day, and actually remembering it, so that when you come across projects and products that need that experience, you have a good hypothetical thought process to start with. That is where it's important to be a good observer. Most of you guys mentioned being empathetic. A lot of people confuse empathy with sympathy or with mirroring people's feelings or emotions that are there. Being empathetic is trying to understand why people do what they do from a distance, and trying to really understand how can you be not helpful at that point of time, but at least try to relate to what they're saying. Right now, when you're trying to be empathetic, that is also gaining information about users and people around you. For example, when we did a research for a really huge fintech company, we went and did on field research where we were speaking to people in villages. When we were talking to them, how is it possible that a metro city team can be empathetic to a tier 1 city that has different kind of struggles? Their problems are not getting something under 10 minutes like we are used to. Their problem is different things. For them, a 40,000 rupee loan is extreme, it's life taking for them compared to us taking a 40,000 loan that's there. So where does empathy lie in a situation like this? Right, you cannot soothe the person or be like, oh, I understand where you're coming from. At that point of time, empathy takes a very different role, and it takes a role in which everything is again being led from observation and curiosity. In this situation, being empathetic would also mean being kind and being able to extract information in a very non-abrasive manner where it can benefit their lives. At the end of the day, whatever you do will impact their lives and will better their lives. That so you have to think from that perspective where your perception and empathy switches. Another very important thing about understanding human desire is also finding hidden emotions. this is like this is usually what I tell my team. I tell my team that you have to absolutely love trying to guess who killed who in a thriller story. Like if you watch TV series on Netflix, like most of you guys mentioned, start looking at, detective stories, detective movies, thriller movies, documentaries, where everything is about unveiling things. Everything is about finding clues. When you go into the habit of finding clues, your deduction skills start becoming stronger. And for UX designers, this is extremely important to hone. Your deduction skills entirely rely on your finding hidden emotions. Now, this is also a practice that you technically have to do on a regular basis to really, really understand human desire. A lot of people, a lot of participants, a lot of things around research, or even the data that's been given to you by, let's say, product managers or by like businesses, always are 50% true, 50% hidden. That's why a lot of people tell you to read between the lines. And reading between the lines actually means being empathetic, being observant, finding hidden emotions. And the last point, which is tapping into your subconscious mind. So I'll give you an example of hidden emotions. We were again doing a research for a very large e-commerce brand across India, where we had interviewed about 200 participants, out of which, sorry, we done a qualitative and quantitative analysis of 200 participants, and 50 participants out of those 200 participants, we did a qualitative analysis. Now, when we were speaking to these people, they came from filling a survey form. They filled certain ideas and concepts that they had on e-commerce and how they feel about it. They feel, some people are budget friendly, some people love to shop particular brands that are there. Some people like to, only buy once a year certain things. So everyone's behaviors are different, everyone's answers are different, right? And then, sorry, actually I have a bad cough, so I will pause for a minute. Hmm. So everyone's answers are different. And then from these 200 participants, when we sat one on one with the 50 participants, we started to notice certain behaviors on the call. Like, for example, people were a bit impatient, people were getting bored very easily. The frequent shoppers would basically emotionally shop in the way they do things. Now, none of these answers are going to come out from directly asking these questions. That is very important for UX designers and researchers to really understand. That asking anything directly will never give you a human desire answer for you, which is the first part of DVF thinking. You have to find hidden emotions, thought processes, and the way to do that is to simplify from the beginning. Like, instead of trying to look at emotions from a complex perspective, try to look at them at a simplified perspective. Like, is someone sad, angry, happy? What scale do they fall in being sad, angry, happy? And why are they feeling sad, angry, happy? And the why is not a question you ask them. The why is the pattern detection that you do when you go through your research in order to find hidden emotions or body language and body behavior. And the fourth most important thing in the DVF model is tapping into the subconscious mind. Now, this is slightly bit more advanced, and this won't happen on your first day or the first year. This only happens through a lot of practice of the three top models that are there. When you talk about tapping into the subconscious mind, this is where, when you find yourself in frustrated situations with your boss or with your manager or with your leader, where they're trying to say that, isn't this obvious? Or, I thought you would understand this. They expect you to read their mind, they expect you to understand what they're talking about. They actually expect you to do the research, they actually expect you to be attention, like pay attention to the detail. They actually expect you to have an opinion of your own. That these things are only gained through experience, right? This kind of things you'll only able to understand when you know your manager really well for a long time, or your boss for a really long time, or your team members for a really long time. So tapping into subconscious mindsets and to understand human desire takes a while and it takes practice. But what you have to kind of look at this point is, whatever they say, whatever they are saying, there is another meaning to it, another perspective to it. And that is supported by being observant, empathetic, and finding hidden emotions. DVF, when you apply DVF very powerfully, it helps us across different fields and different areas. This doesn't just work for UX designers or UI designers or researchers. This also works for illustrators, motion graphic designers, visual communication designers. It also works for people who are architects, engineers, any field that you think about. This is applicable to any field that you work in. The only thing is, all your outputs are different, but these are skill sets. BVF builds skill sets that concentrate on soft skills that grow you better as a designer, help you cater better to your audience. So the first very important part is that whatever you do in whatever field that you're in, concentrate on understanding human desire. First part of DVF. Second part of DVF is technical feasibility. Technical feasibility is extremely important. Honestly, I personally hated technical feasibility because as a designer, I was like a wanderer designer or a fantasy designer. I wanted to create designs that were so amazing and so beautiful and have such excellent experiences. I wanted to create models that were like under 10 minutes. I wanted to make designs that were the best designs that were ever there. But then I realized that having that kind of thought process actually defeated the design altogether. It actually made all human desire, all human thought process singular, which is how Dishti would think. But that's not the truth, right? Like, every person is different and every person's need is different. And imagine trying to detect a pattern in every person's need in order to cater to them. Every person who comes on a Vodafone application or a Sipla application or a Zepto application or any apps that we use or any products that we use, each person that logs into that system is a different human being with a different life, with a different story, with a different experience. Yet we have to build one common experience for all of them. And that common experience tends to get designed through technical feasibility. Tech is what creates a singular experience. Design is what creates a multitude experience. So, as designers, it's very natural for us to think in multifold ways and multi directional ways. But at the end of the day, whatever we create, when it goes into the developer's hands and starts getting broken down, it kind of burns all of our desires at the end of the day. And that is how I used to think. What I realized is that tech feasibility is actually more important than designing. Like, if we start thinking tech first, if we start thinking tech capabilities first, you don't have to learn how to code, you don't have to learn Python and like all of the class sets that are there. It's not important, but you do have to experience it, and you do have to understand how basic technology works altogether. I've seen so many young designers make very, very, very rudimentary mistakes because they've never taken interest in understanding that whatever they are creating, how is it getting developed. So all of you guys who are there on the call, no matter what, make a developer a best friend, or in the company if there's a developer, or if your company has tied up with a dev house, please speak to your managers, please speak to your team members and work with tech people. Speak to them, understand them, become their goddamn best friends if you can. Really understand why does it take them to make a one page website design, why does it take them a few hours a day or a couple of days to make them, and what is it that they are doing, how are they breaking down your design. For us, Figma automates so many things. For us, it's all boils down to our ideas, our strategy, our thought process. For them, that is not the case. They do use ready classes from GitHub, they use ready classes from Bootstrap, they use their own tools and systems, just how we use ChatGPT and AI and everything in our design. They use it too. But you have to see how your design is getting broken down in tech. Why is that very important? At the end of the day, whatever you create, if it cannot be coded, there is no point of that creation. No amount of dribble, behance, portfolio design, nothing is going to make sense if you do not understand how tech works. And a lot of young students, a lot of young people ask, oh, my portfolio needs to stand out. One very important thing in your portfolio ideally should be talking about tech and other tech feasibility of your design. It actually gives you a bonus point overall, but we're not talking about that. um, the idea is that being technically feasible, the F, right, is extremely, extremely important. One is that whatever you design, you have to check it with real, you have to refer it to real digital experiences. Stop using examples from these websites that are like uh, platforms that curate design experiences. Start using examples from real places like a land book or awards or other places where actually a code has been written behind that design and it's actually live. That is where you will be able to understand that whatever you create, how does it come to reality. Second very important thing is that technology, when you think about tech feasibility in your design and you think about how technical it should be, you will always fall into this trap of creating designs that then become subpar or templatized. Because the minute you realize tech world how it functions, you'll be like, oh shit, I can't design something cooler, sexier and amazing, because how will this get coded, right? What I would suggest at this point is that obviously you need to keep your ideas innovative, because a lot of innovation is driven by design. A lot of beautiful ideas are driven by design. But the curiosity of tech is what will aid and make your designs actually real and usable. At the end of the day, you're thinking of impacting users, right? So whatever you design shouldn't be for yourself, it should be for your users. It should be to create a better world, a more feasible world. And that is where you need to think about revolution instead of innovation. So when you're creating designs, you know that if you're creating a website's benefits page, you know you're going to have a left right left layout or a singular layout. And this is where you need to again tap into human desire, human feasibility. Think about like, okay, how do I advance this experience, make it really fun, make it really exceptional, and think about it as you're evolving it and not innovating. Because innovation tends to be very scary and tends to be a very big word, and a lot of people feel like, oh, it's, how do I define innovation at this point? So don't think about it from that way. Think about that, I know what a basic design looks like, I know what this is my requirement. How do I revolutionize it, how do I evolve it to a part where tech basically can merge with it and actually functionally work, and they can push some of the boundaries, and so can you. Another very important thing is that you have to try to understand that tech can innovate and revolutionize if you reduce the risk of failure. Reducing the risk of failure is trying to understand what image optimization means, what SEO means, what it means to have open graph images, understand where you can place a fav icon, understand how ratios of images work, understand how your DS system, like your design system, supports your whatever you create. These all things actually reduce the risk of failure in technology in when it gets coded. A lot of these fundamentals start lacking in a lot of designers that are there, and we all love to get on Figma and create this amazing design and have fun with it. But that is where the risk of failure is so high that in order to develop something like that costs a lot more money and ends up being much more difficult for a team to follow. So try to reduce the risk of failure through proper models in design, like I explained. And the fourth most important thing is communicate with your dev teams with curiosity and not with force. Don't try to get frustrated, annoyed. They are as irritated as you are. So don't try to fight with them and say, oh, dev people, like, they just don't know, it's so difficult to design with them. Not at all. Like, you have to understand that they're also trying their best, and that you have to communicate with them with curiosity. If they can't develop something that you have designed, try to understand why. Try to sit with them on a seat and try to break down that information. See how the code is functioning in the design that you provided and how it gets layered. At the end of the day, that's what makes you a more powerful designer compared to just someone who's an expert in Figma and just delivers projects across. So that's super, super important for tech feasibility. And the last point, which under DVF, is economic viability. How economically viable are you? How economically viable is your design? How economically viable is your time? And this is something I see a lot of people don't speak about, which is why this one's a little bit close to my heart and very specific to what I wanted to tell you guys. Um, remember when I said that, think about like creating an evolutionary idea, or revolutionary idea, not an innovative idea. Innovative ideas cost a lot of money to companies, to tech teams, and to people. If you think about it from a revolutionary perspective or an evolutionary perspective, you can actually reach innovation, but you also don't cost that much in order to reach innovation. So reduce risks with new ideas. If you're coming up with a new idea, try to think about the feasibility, the tech feasibility of the idea, the human desire thought process that comes in, and then think about the cost, how much it's going to cost to actually deliver this design. You also hold a cost, right? Like when we ask for a CTC, when we have a salary, we have a per day cost that we come with. That per day cost also counts with the amount of time that it takes you to design something, right? So let's say that if it takes you, if the company has decided that this design should be delivered in 5 days, but it takes you 10 days or 15 days, that means that the cost to deliver the design to the company is 3x, right? If it's 15 days, that means that your capability in order to ask for more money, or in order to understand where you lies in your economic viability lies, is about understanding that your delivery time and also your appetite for failure. These two things are very important for you to understand your economic viability. Now, to understand the company's economic viability, you might obviously understand that whatever you all are delivering costs a certain amount, right? How much that amount costs is at the end of the day the cost of innovation, ideation, and enjoyment of impact for a user, right? The user doesn't know that, okay, this is what it costed me. He's like enjoying the interface or hating the interface at the end of the day that you design, right? But with cost comes timelines, with timelines comes delivery, and with delivery comes people who are also economically viable to deliver that project. So you really need to understand that if you're going to think of new crazy ideas, and you're going to be like very stuck on the idea that I cannot fail fast, you're going to end up costing everything so much that the impact of impact of delivery for the user also ends up happening, which is where the cost of that experience goes down. That is what economic viability plays a very important role in the DVF model. So whatever you create, whatever ideas that you have, what you want to design, you need to create it faster so you can fail faster. When I said that one experience or one interface design is built for millions of people coming to that interface has to rapidly grow, and that interface has to go through rapid amount of iterations based on how the humans are asking from that object or from that experience. And trust me, this changes every few weeks to a month. So whatever you design is technically never permanent. So if you put your heart, soul, and your entire life into that and get stuck on that design and don't think about feedback and iterations and growth in the design, you're going to get very frustrated as a designer overall. You have to understand that you are designing not for yourself, not for the company, but for the people who are going to experience that interface. And those people have ever changing minds, desires, thought process also. While there is a restraint on tech feasibility, controlling those amount of desire, need, and want that your users will have, you have to understand that you have to iterate fast enough in order to cater to them till you actually strike gold. And what does striking gold mean in our world? Striking gold means in our world is you created a hook in your experience. And that hook is so strong that it will attract many, many, many more users into your application. And there are design hooks in applications that make things that make users want to stay loyal to that application at the end of the day. So iterate fast, learn fast is very important to create better economic viability. Cost to company and yourself, like I explained, cost to company and yourself is something that you must evaluate in order to be more stronger in how you present yourself and what you do for the company and what your role in design really is. You have to really evaluate that at the end of the day, growth is not just learning new things. Growth is also delivering at a particular speed, matching the way the requirements come in. I know I sound like a very business person, but this is very true because this is a very important lesson for yourselves. Because when you understand this better, your cost of yourself increases and it becomes much more valuable. And as designers, when we want a seat at the table, our cost has to be high enough to get that seat at the table. And that comes with all of these caveats. And obviously the last most important part about economic viability is keeping clients business in mind. This is something that I absolutely love to do. I try to hate my client as less as possible. Some people are horrible, I understand that. But they come from a certain background, they're very frustrated, they come from their thought process, and their business needs that visibility. It needs a helping hand, it needs as many helping hands as possible. If you treat your client's business like it's your own business, you will be able to actually solve problems instead of push your ideas across and say this is it, this is what I want, right? You will actually think about design from a very different perspective than just what Figma as an interface gives you. You will think about it as solutions that change how people feel, think, right? And that comes from being a business person, understanding how business functions. Why do people function a certain way when they run a business? That is very important for you to understand how to cater to your users, how to come up with new storylines, new innovative ideas, new features in design, right? New communication techniques in design, which makes the design even more powerful. So economic viability covers all of these very important factors, and that is what you should technically apply. That covers your DVF model. So how do you activate design thinking? Like I mentioned, it's a phase, right, between after research and before designing. You start doing design thinking by one, turning your problems into questions. When you turn your problems into questions, I know I've written that ask these questions that inspire you and the client, but these questions are not to be asked to your people. These questions are self reflective questions in design thinking. Frame problems into questions that create self reflection, that put you into the zone of deduction, pattern finding, and design thinking. Generate ideas. Like when you're second part of generating ideas, when you're generating ideas, push beyond the Push beyond your first draft of solutions. Okay, they're never gonna work. Everyone has thought of that. What you thought of, everyone has thought of it. It's not possible that you came up with a great solution on your first go. Okay, you have to understand the past, present, the future, all of these different aspects in your solution creation. Right, if the problems remain the same, solutions have to be different. Solutions have to be more advanced, and to advance your solutions, the first line of solutions you come up with should be put, stored and kept on the side, and then you need to think deeper. That's when actual solutioning happens. The third most important thing in design thinking is testing ideas and gathering feedback, which means that if you do any reflection and you come up with solutions on your own by framing questions, ask people around you. Try to get the ideas validated, approved, or relatable to a certain extent, so you know that you've reached a point of empathizing with your user correctly, that your observation has been correct, your ideation has been correct. Because when you move into designing, that is where the frustration will begin. Because if you came up with a wrong idea, you did not understand, if you didn't understand the solutioning DVF correctly and solutioning correctly, you'll make a design that will end up going through a whole cycle of iteration, which becomes very frustrating at the end of the day. So it's very important to validate as much as you can during your design thinking process, and quick validations. You don't have to make survey forms, you don't have to take interviews. And if you've done research and you actually go through a severe research phase and then you reach a design thinking phase, your testing ideas are not necessary to do at that point, because they're technically validated and you're then framing questions and generating ideas. So please understand, this is a little flexible. And the fourth, my most favorite thing that we do at Pineapple, and it's very, very important and dear to us, is make it a story. Storytelling is never going to die. Storytelling has happened from the day of being cavemen, where literally where there's nothing around you except fire, people have picked up sand and created pictures and visuals that tell a story. Every human being lives through stories. Every person lives through stories. Every time you gossip, every time you talk to your friends, every time you complain, every time you vent, every time you cry, every time whatever happens, you're telling a story. That cannot die when you present your designs or design. Find the story, find the thread. If it doesn't exist, it's probably not a good design. You need to find the story in the design. So make stories that are powerful, impactful, they add context. A lot of times, one favorite thing that I love to do is when I'm presenting a design to a client, I will always give some background to the client. I'll be like, I really thought about that I wanted to do it in this shade of color or this kind of typography. But while I was doing it, I realized that this won't really be enough. So then I thought about coming into this space where I felt that, some of the users were saying that purple was something that was going very well together. Storytelling. Hey, this is my design. So purple is your color, and I'm using Inter as a font, and this is not storytelling. Storytelling has a very personal interest inside of you. It takes pauses. Everything is not and, but it's and, therefore, but, so, as a conclusion, that's storytelling. So when you find yourself saying too many ands, really realize you're not telling a story. And that's how you technically start activating design thinking, and the DVF model comes into play, and that's how you become an amazing designer. So, yep, that's it for my deck. I'm happy to answer questions. And just a quick thank you for, like, this is my Instagram, Dishti Desai. So if we can't cover everyone's questions on this platform, you guys can follow me on my personal Instagram, and I take special time out to answer questions to help the community as much as possible. So, yeah, just gonna keep this for a second. And Rishabh can also share it across with you guys if you can. And yeah,
Absolutely. We'll send it in a post-event mailer. Perfect.
awesome. All right. So yes, question time.
All
Okay.
right. I'm sharing my screen
Yeah.
back. All right, folks. Okay. So it's time for the Q&A. Like I mentioned, do post them in the Q&A sections. Okay. There is a feature meant for this purpose. So let's use it. Uh, avoid posting it in chat because then it gets quite cluttered.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. I hope you can see it. See the Q&As over here on the screen. But regardless, I'll just read it out to you so you can answer one by one. Okay, so the first question is, how do you manage user feedback that conflicts with business objectives?
Okay. Um, this is a little tricky. So, okay, users also at the same. You must have heard of the saying that Steve Jobs said, right? That no, people do not know what they want; they know what they need, right? This is typically how a user thinks. Like the user knows what they need. Like I need this, I need this, I need 10 minutes, I need like these things. But their want is something really different. Their want comes from a space that it would be nice to have, but like how do you really experience something like this at the end of the day? So don't take your users word, don't take your word of what your user is asking for. Try to place your users feedback on one end, try to place your business objective on one end, and try to look at where can you cohesively coincide your experience or your uh, solutioning. And if you find massive conflicts, you really need to understand if the business is doing a good job at catering something for the user, or is the user really not understanding why they're using that person's business. And in this case, it's also very important to know the number of users doing this. So a business is much larger if the users are only 40, 50,000, 100,000. It's still a quite small user base, right? When you see a larger user base like 300 million, 400 million, 500 million user bases, and they are finding a problem with the experience of the product that they are actually having, then the business really needs to understand and change. But if the business has a larger motive and has a larger thought process, and let's say that there's only 40, 50,000 users who are kind of coinciding with the business, then the business needs to mature itself enough in order to cater to that smaller audience that comes in. Also, it depends on the kind of testing, evolution, and understanding that the business is going through, right? a lot of a lot of businesses have altered their proposition or their ideas by understanding more of their users over a period of time. So you really need to think about like where this question can get applied and how it can work, and it has to have a lot of context also towards it. But yeah, I still hope it answered it.
Thank you so much, Dhishti. We'll go to the next question. Can you give some example and tell the difference between evolutionary and revolutionary innovation? I'm not sure if innovation was the right word. You were talking about this when we were talking about economic viability. Thank you.
Yeah. So, okay. Okay. So, Harshi, let me explain this maybe a little bit better. Evolution and revolution, right? Evolution is something that evolves, like an insect that a Pokemon. Okay, in Pokemon we know, right? Like what evolution means. It goes from like being a Charmander, like a smaller version, to a medium version to an advanced version. That's evolution. Like you evolve, right? So your design evolves. So let's say you design a nav bar and an app at the bottom, which everyone does, and then a small evolution of that will be a floater nav bar. A little bit more smaller evolution of that will be that we don't need a nav bar at all. Maybe we just like have a navless navigation less application, and because everything that you need is actually covered by the homepage. So you're evolving the design, right? um in revolution is very close to innovation. Sometimes innovation is the mother of necessity, does not exist. You're creating a design that does not exist, you're creating an experience that does not exist. It's like how infinity scrolling came into the picture before we even knew that infinity scrolling was something that we all needed. Infinity scrolling was a innovative idea. Now that puts a lot of pressure on a lot of us, because you cannot be innovative every single day in a world that is evolving at the rate of light. Like it's impossible. So to remove the pressure, I kind of started speaking about design from a more revolutionary or a more evolutionary thought process, which eventually leads to revolutionary ideas, which eventually you might discover you innovated. So that would be the difference between all of these words.
Thanks, Drishti. We have one more question from Hershey.
Okay.
It is many a times when you ideate, you discard your first idea, then you keep on ideating many ideas. When do you know that you have done ideating? Like you reach the idea out of pool of ideas. Once again, thank you.
Thank you. She's very like she's every point she's like thank you. um okay, so Harshi, let me tell you this. You never reach the idea. Okay, I think that's a myth that we all designers need to love and accept, even me, even when I cry about that. um I believe that it's very important for you to have multiple ideas. Okay, and how do you reach the idea is a team job. It's not a single person's decision. You feel like this is, you might realize that this is the idea when you run out of time, and then you present that idea. And then let's say the people who are evaluating it, like your stakeholders or your team members or whoever you're working with, realize that no, you know what, this can be better, or this can be better, or this can be changed. And maybe you already tried that out on your previous versions and you rejected it because you weren't sure if that made sense or not. So that's why it's very important to keep your previous versions. Out of all of these versions, and your the idea version is a combination of actually the idea. That is where teamwork creates the final idea. That is, this is the thing, that a lot of clients also do this. You realize this, that your clients giving you feedback is your client begging you to be part of the idea, because nobody will accept a design from a stranger at the end of the day, right? If you tell a person, make me the most amazing bed that is there, and that person makes the most amazing bed according to what he understood from your personality, you are still going to have an input. You are still going to be like, nahi yaar, I wanted this, in the bed, this. Why? Because you wanted to feel like it's yours. Right? So that is where designers need to understand that feedback is people asking to be a part of creating something that is for a larger audience, and that you are one part, and your the client is one part, and your boss is one part, and your team is one part, and all those parts make a good design. That is how we are able to create a singular experience for millions of people, because you need at least some people to agree on one design, right? For millions to agree to for that design. So that's a good question, and it's an important one. So yeah.
Thank you so much, Hershey, for asking that. We have one question from Ayush. How will we measure the success of our implementation and what metrics will we use?
Awesome. Great question, Ayush. I think one of the most important things is that data sharing and being given metrics by businesses is extremely difficult, and more every single day designers are asking for it. Um, I would suggest start getting you might already be familiar with this, but start getting familiarized with Google Analytics overall. Start getting familiarized with what CleverTap does. When they put analytics across on these multiple applications that we use, try to understand certain metrics that you must try to gain at all points of time. Let's say, for example, DAU and MAUs. Also try to, DAU is like daily active users, MAU is monthly active users. Try to gather up in baseline, like make a Word doc, put baseline metrics that you need for an app, for a website, and for a dashboard. Try to understand that metrics differ on the interface that you deal with. For example, sometimes you can save a person's, like for healthcare, a very good metric is saving lives. It has nothing to do with number of users using the application. It is a much larger metric that makes a difference. For heavy work based applications or B2B enterprise solutions, the metric is usually saving time. How can you save 15 minutes? How can you reduce the time of usage or delivery from 1 hour to 30 minutes to 15 minutes to 10 minutes? So try to figure out through different articles. There are a lot of articles online. There are great UX white papers online. Read them and try to realize what the metrics are. Okay, when you realize what the metrics are, you need to make sure that you need to speak to the analytics team of the business that is there, and ask them accurate metrics. Because one of the most biggest mistakes I realize that designers do is that they're like, I want to know the success of my work, and they try to ask them in a very generic way. They don't try to ask in a specific way. And the people who are actually the data scientists and who are using analysts in the company who have the business metrics do not give you the business metrics until unless you specifically ask for the metric you're looking for. So that's how you have to actually measure your metrics and understand your metrics and be more specific. Yeah, that's it. That's the
Awesome,
answer.
Dishti. Yeah, thanks, Ayush, for asking that. Now we are almost at the end, so we'll take one last question. And what could be a better question than please can you sum up all the main points?
I did sum up the main points. I spoke about how you activate design thinking, which is summing up the main points. Ideally, the thing is, DVF is human desire, economic viability, and tech feasibility. As a designer, make sure that at all points of time you care about the human desire, and that when you care about it, you will use the tools that I spoke about. Understand that has to be technically feasible. Whatever you design needs to be technically feasible. And think about economic viability, is that your cost of designing as well as the design that you are charging for, or the cost your client is paying or business is paying, has to be considered in order to build a successful product design. So that is summarizing it. But I feel like, Rishabh, it's unfair that I'm answering this question. We can maybe take one more question out here which can actually help them with something else. But yeah, that's the summation.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So we have a lot of questions. It's very hard for me to pick one. Dishti, how about you go on pick one question?
Okay, let me try. Okay, I'm gonna pick this one by Akshay Bajaj. How creative storytelling convinces the most adamant of clients, even the ones concerned only with numbers. Okay. Clients who are only concerned with numbers are very, very interesting clients. Okay, they all come with a personality of their own. First thing is that if you have a client who only works in numbers, I actually had a client like that who would only speak to us in numbers, who would be like, no, oh, but will this increase 10% engagement? Will it increase? But my design, why I've designed it, it's only 10% engagement. So at that point of time, it's very important to understand the client's personality, understand what is their worry. I realized that the person who was asking me only about numbers was the CEO of of a very large company, and the CEO was responsible to answer to his board of directors only in numbers. Now, I did not get this information by only conversing with the CEO. I got this information by conversing with his head of products, with his team members, with his different sections, and I realized that this person cannot think beyond numbers because he loses job if he did anything beyond his numbers. And when something is so close to him with something like that, no matter what age, seniority, what he's running, that is his story. So what I used to do is that I used to start creating hypotheses. I used to try to create hypothetical numbers where I would be that I would like to achieve a 10% engagement rate. But in order to achieve a 10% engagement rate, I believe that the user first needs to like the proposition of gamification that we're giving them, or like the proposition of different models that you will apply to create better engagement for the user. So I start with a number and then I tell my story. So then his patience basically is a little higher at that point of time. At the end of the day, he still would stick to the number, but I would know that he's thinking about my story while he is having that conversation with his board of director. So a lot of times you don't get an immediate validation or answer for storytelling at the moment that you do it. But every human being, when they are being convinced to think differently, have an ego that exists, and that ego will not solve it immediately. The ego needs some time to take the story with them, mull over it for a few days, and then you will see slowly small changes that happen. And if those changes obviously don't happen over a period of time, then you really can't change people and how they think. And that's when you have to consider your options. But storytelling always does the trick. Connecting with people always does the trick, which is why it's very important. And that's why, like I said, I put a mixture of storytelling of numbers in the beginning in my story and then continued my story. I tried to change my pitch or my perspective so I could meet his perspective. I didn't try to force my perspective on that person, because that is what switches them off. And that is where you do good in sales also. So, yeah.
Thank you so
Okay.
much, Ishti. That those were, I think we covered most of the questions,
Yeah.
but yeah. Now going forward, it's we'll love to hear from you a little bit of feedback. What did you like? What did you did not like? We'll share a Google Form link in the chat, so you can just go ahead and share your feedback, and we will improve on it in the coming workshop, which is the next will happen next 2 weeks. So yeah, thank you so much for being here. I have one last request. Let's take a group picture. Please turn on your cameras. I think admins, we can probably let them give them permission to turn on their cameras, so we can just come and take a group picture real quick.
Just find me on Instagram for all the questions I've not been able to answer. I will answer them. You can send them to me across. My name is written there. So I feel very bad. I wanted to answer more questions. But yeah, I'm ready for the photo.
All right.
Uh, Rishabh, you can
Hmm.
stop screen share.
Oh, damn. Zoom.
Meanwhile, if Ahmed is here, I think he has the option maybe.
Okay.
Tell me when to smile. Huh?
We'll definitely tell all of us to smile.
Chat, do you have the option to enable camera? If not, let me know. No, right? Okay.
I don't see an option to allow them the camera.
Yeah, yeah. If there's an option to promote all people to panelists, that would have been great.
Uh, but
But
that
there is
doesn't
no
sound like a
button
very good
because
idea.
there is no
Doesn't sound
business
like
requirement, it seems.
yeah. Okay, maybe we can probably skip this then.
The photo.
Yes.
Oh, wait. I need.
Okay, I can. I like they say I can do it, but I don't see any.
Uh,
Yeah, I
Someone
don't
has
think
recommended the option to
can.
do a whiteboard.
Oh, yes. Can try that.
are we doing a whiteboard where we're putting photographs of ourselves?
Maybe we draw. What we draw, we nobody knows.
Draw what we look like.
Okay. Okay, we draw our own faces. So let's get
Maximum design
Come
experience.
on, guys. Bring your design thinking. Let's apply what you learned.
All the ones with an Apple pen should be much better at it.
Nice. Now I just want to make sure the attendees can actually do something. Right? So I don't see any option to
Yeah.
Rishabh, can you try making Hamid the host again?
I'll do this, yes.
So yeah,
Yeah.
meanwhile you can try. I agree, Avi.
Okay.
Figma is the better option.
Wow. Let's keep this
We are
between
getting
you and us. Yeah, that the group picture did not work out.
yeah,
You
we
are
are getting
the
live
first
feedback for
live feed.
Zoom whiteboard. Great. As Hamid is figuring out this, thanks folks for joining in. I know, as Rishabh mentioned, Saturday night you had
Yeah,
a lot of interesting options to do, but you choose to do this. So thank you
with
for
us.
sticking by. So yeah,
I don't think anybody had anything interesting to do. Based on responses they gave.
there are a lot of good questions. The chat was very active. So
Yeah.
loved the energy from I think Dhisti as well. A lot of people have said this, but they loved your energy and the way you have answered questions. So ऐसी energy बनी रहे.
I'm so glad they could feel my energy through the camera. Like in real, though, like the photographers have a hard time taking my picture because I'm just flying across the room. Like I saw that when you guys sent me design vichar, and I was like, "अरे इतना
Yes,
आधा आधा उड़ रही हूँ सब जगह पे." Like my marketing team was like, कि, "Bro, like ये कर क्या तू करती क्या है सब मीटिंग पे?" And I was just like, I need every like my whole body has to be in sync with my brain, like when I'm doing things.
Rishabh is actually sweating it out on the board, by the way. Like he's
Yeah,
making something.
even me too. See, Rishabh made a good one. Like, it's nice.
Meanwhile, Hamid, let us know if it's not possible because
Yeah, we
yeah,
can get the 32 participants who are still there for the photos. It was so kind to be there. Let's improve the UX of Zoom, bro. Zoom will not work like that.
100%. This feels
They
like a
don't,
usability testing session for Zoom by the looks of it, from start to end.
seriously. I feel like only these modern companies like Arc and stuff who are actually innovating on these age old systems are doing innovation.
Yeah,
Zoom and these guys are like, I don't know what they do. And it takes them so much time to make these decisions, also.
that's true.
But we need
Cool.
it, man. In a day of age and places we're heading. Yeah.
Yeah.
Skip
Next
the.
time we'll do Google Meet.
Oh, look at it. Woo. Yeah.
The lesser evil. We'll do that. Cool. I think then we can wrap it up. Uh,
Yeah,
Yes.
guys. We'll wrap it. Okay. Thank you for the last 30 attendees who stuck around. And thank you so much, Rishabh, Suraj, and like guys, and for having me here. And I had fun as always.
Thank you
And good
so much,
luck.
Vishti, once again. Yeah.
Good
Just
luck
another
for
events.
yeah, yeah. Now you guys are used to see.
Uh,